Ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bá jó, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bá jó, olúwa mi ò dìde ojó ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀.
Hello and welcome to the Ashen Forge. I am Phantom X, joined as always by Diggs and the legendary Neurotoxin. It's been a couple of weeks, largely my fault, but thank you for joining us, either live or on the YouTubes. How are you two doing?
Great.
Doing pretty good. We got SoCal snow a few days back. That was kind of interesting.
Oh, right. Okay.
Hailstorm. Yep.
You did the great. What's the cereal?
Frosted Flakes?
Yes, that's that.
Yeah.
You just reminded me of that. Great.
Great. No, that's Tony the Tiger.
but being away for a couple of weeks means we actually have quite a bit to go over. Probably the most sort of important, I don't know if you want to call it important, how you want to read it, and we can just jump right into it, I guess, is that Alpha 1 has been delayed. That kind of comes off of the last dev stream, which we have not covered either, where they also mentioned there were some issues with the tests that they did, although they didn't really specify as to what, but I think they then have spent some time trying to hash it out and just have reached the understanding or agreement that they have to move Alpha 1 back. So it is now, I'm trying to remember the dates, and I have everything up here. I do not remember off the top of my head. Do you remember? June.
Yes. It
June
is.
1st. So, yeah. So the preview will be May 14th through the 21st, and Alpha 1 is June 1st through the 30th. And I'm trying to remember the originals. So that's about, a month?
March 19th and then April.
Yeah, so it's maybe a month, a little or so delay, I think, is what they're shooting for, right?
Yeah. And they said March 19th to June 1st is going to be spot testing. So everybody who's doing the alpha stuff, definitely keep on checking wherever the announcements are made and, hop on when there's a spot test, and might last a little while. It might last a lot longer. Who knows? You'll have to be there to see.
So the question is that something to be concerned about or not? This has been a very long road. That's my first question.
I gotta say no. This is on the engineering side. This is only affecting the engineering tasks and pipeline, and that I don't believe is ultimately going to be the thing that would cause the project to face delays. I think all of the design work, all of the art and aesthetics, all of the audio design, everything that isn't engineering is still going to be going full steam ahead. So all of that stuff will be ready by the time engineering's ready for it. Meanwhile, this is only a small slice of the entire game world they're even using right now. So it's one of those things where it's better that they take the time to get it right now than try to build on top of garbage to hit arbitrary deadlines that are really only there because they're doing the open development. Once again, we always talk about closed development. You don't see these delays because you don't see these delays. You aren't a part of the process.
Although anymore, closed development is more of a rarity than open, I'd say, over the last 5-6 years most. Anyway, that's a different topic. But
what is the concern, Phantom?
Well, I guess we don't really. Well, I don't know if there should be, because we don't really know what the problem was. I did not watch the live stream. I've only done Neuro's notes and then the Ashes Post transcript. So and like I said, he did not necessarily. He just said a setback, right? So if it was something along the lines of networking, if there were issues, and I did not participate in the test either, so I'm not breaking any sort of NDA. if it's a networking issue, I guess my thought is, well, they just spent how long with people within APOC? Now I know it's a different setting, but they have, I mean, and more or less the same idea, right? Of the data that you're pushing back and forth from server to client. So I don't know. We are 5 years in 2016. And now how long are we into this process of actual testing? APOC opened in not 20, was it 19?
Yeah, I feel like it was
2018. 2018 is when we.
2018?
I think the end of October.
Damn, time flies.
November.
All right.
October, November of 2018, I believe.
I just, and I'm not trying to be negative Nancy. I invested in this just the same as everyone else did, but we're pretty far along. They're just now ramping up hiring.
APOC was September 24th, 2019.
So 29. So I was okay. That's still 2 years.
No, because we started in 2018, right? And then because we had a round of that before Maggie, didn't we?
Honestly, I can't remember. It's just the more so, I guess without knowing much, it also, I wish they had said or had a little bit of a clue. That would also, I think, have calmed some my nerves a little bit, at least, as to, hey, this is, not a major issue. It's something we can, because then the next question, okay, you delay it a month. Is that actually enough time? Because the other thing I would hate to see from a PR perspective, right, is, oh, we're going to delay it a month. And then you wait a month. Oh, we got to delay it another 2 months. Oh, we got to delay it another 3 months. I would rather, that becomes the other sort of concern. But I don't know, because we don't know what happened. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, APOC was in September. I see stuff on YouTube from September of 2018.
Okay.
No. So it just seems like a lot of time to have to delay an alpha setting anyways. I could understand, further along something like New World, you're trying to get into a beta sort of release state. Okay, because you hear the term alpha. I mean, at least I personally would expect that's still another, year, 6 months, a year before you even get to beta. Another year before you get to release. So to me, alpha is still a couple years out. But if they're having,
and this is still just alpha 1.
Mm-hmm. But if we're having issues even getting to that point, what's sort of been going on the last 4 years.
I guess the other possibility is that they did the test and they got all the data they needed and saw where all the weak points are and where all the excess of the data use is. And it's like, all right, well, all we need is like 30 minutes to an hour every now and then to see if everybody is loading all of the assets in the world and they're all trying to intercommunicate, or if we've got everything sectioned and segmented off enough. So it could be some things that they, have an inkling of, but aren't really able to tell in real time without actually having, the disparate clients and their hardware and their network connections and everything all kind of struggling to get in and do the thing.
I mean, it is different. I mean, you do have more data, I guess, that you're pushing in with APOC, but I don't know. It's unusual circumstances. I understand COVID. No one's in the office. Everyone's working from home. What did they say? They're still trying to hire 35 people. They've only filled 9. So they're obviously down in the people power they need or at least they feel they need in order to get the game up and going. And I understand that, but at what point do you start thinking Star Citizen? Sort of thing.
Well, I think at what point does Star Citizen become the norm?
Oh.
I mean, these games are getting bigger in scope, I think. So we should not be surprised that they're taking longer than 5 years, which is pretty much what World of Warcraft took.
So of the Of the 14 listings they have on the careers website, the top 3 are Unreal Network Engineer, Network Security Engineer, and Security Engineer Officer. So it's fair to assume that there could be something on the networking side that's kind of they've got essentially a staff bottleneck.
I mean, I would assume it's something with networking. I don't think you would delay Alpha 1 over content, right? I mean, you're still adding that on the whole way.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on what content is. I mean, nodes is content, and getting nodes to work the way we hope it works as designed. I don't know what the obstacles for that might be, and I don't think we've seen enough of nodes to have any understanding of how much of an obstacle that might
That's
be.
true. Because I was starting to think, well, also you're using Unreal, so how the client and the server. But you're right. I mean, everything's specialized. They're adding a lot of their own stuff into it.
Yeah. And one of the nice things with the Unreal Engine is, unlike some other ones that start with a U, you're able to really get down to the nitty gritty to like the most core levels of the engine and change them as needed. So, they have the ability to do whatever they want and need to. It's just that, again, looking at that staffing stuff, this may very well be that they just haven't hired the person that they can really rely on and do the thing. And that's part of the delay. Because there might be some really complex stuff that they still want or need to do before they feel confident kind of pushing things a little further. So, I mean, that's completely fair. I will say, though, from the 4K Alpha 1 preview of gameplay that they showed us, they did definitely go around and do things that, look like gameplay in an MMO. There's some parts that were maybe a little off, a little, still need some tuning and balancing, but they were able to do quests. You bust out a spider web and all of a sudden a giant spider appears. That was a little funny, but okay. And that was, they kind of demonstrated where they're at with that. So even if that was on their own internal servers, not something that somebody else would be able to connect to, at least it's showing that they've got a lot of the functionality working to an extent on their, in their own controlled environment. So
I think the problem, if there is a problem, the problem with that, what we've been seeing again, and Phantom says this all the time, which is why I'm bringing it up, kind of, is they've always been able to show us in-game footage. They were able to show us going on quests back in 2017, if not 2016. So they've always been able to show us a bunch of people running around doing quests.
that's true.
A handful of people running around doing quests. What we haven't seen and what we still want to see is how do nodes work? And then really on top of that, sure, I would expect you to be able to give us, we've got EQ and EQ2 devs. They have to be able to give us basic classes, archetypes, mage, tank, cleric. Of course they can do that. What we want to see is what are those 64 other ones and how those are going to work.
Right.
And even for the alpha, okay, sure, we get to go in and play around in the world, and that's great. Get us in as quickly as possible so we can have fun in the game world. But really what we want to know is nodes and how are these secondary archetypes and augments going to work. That's what's making the difference in this game. I'm not playing the game because I want to play EQ2 or EQ or even WoW, even though I'm having more fun in WoW these days. I'm not just wanting to play. I'm certainly not wanting to play any old MMO, and even any old MMORPG. I want to play something that has a dynamic world with a system similar to nodes and social organizations and the religious organizations and all that stuff. How is all that stuff going to work? that's not going to be in the alpha, and it's taking this long to get to the alpha, but it doesn't have any of the stuff that I think we really want to see and really want to experiment and really want to weigh in on early. If the alpha's taken this long, and that's just general questing and leveling, when do we get to beta? And how does nodes affect all of that stuff? So, in my view, I think 5 years is fine. I don't think of ourselves as being behind. I'm just saying that the alpha that they're showing us, I mean, yeah, they can, that's the easy stuff in my view.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. It's definitely difficult to say. I actually, now that I think about it, I want to say maybe they had mentioned, or maybe I'm just making it up, that the secondary archetypes probably won't even appear in the alpha because it's only going to let you get to a certain point. So
that's right.
Yeah. So that definitely, you know, I understand your concerns there. I don't think it means there won't be any augments available. It's just you won't have the secondary archetype versions of the augments. I think some of the other ones through like being a member of a guild, being, you know, the other sorts of things that can provide them might possibly show up. Maybe not.
I'm pretty sure they won't. I don't think guilds are going to show up in the alpha. Social organizations, I don't think are going to show up in the alpha. I think the alpha, we're just going to have progression questing, basic questing, and we should see some preliminary nodes. I forget what it's up to, stage 2, something like that. I don't think we get to stage 3. But again, time factor. I mean, I'm not expecting this necessarily. I would prefer it not to take 10 years. I would prefer not to be 60 or older before I get to play the game. But it's not surprising that it's taking 5 years to do all this stuff, because it's a lot of extra stuff. It's an ambitious project. I haven't seen anybody do anything like this, so I'm not surprising that it's taking.
Yeah, but the hope though with using Unreal or Unity is that you get to shave off a whole lot of that time, right? That's the whole reason for using a engine rather than trying to go out and make your own, you know, Forge Light or whatever with EverQuest and all those sorts of things, is that you're going to be able to shave off quite a lot of time, and that doesn't seem to necessarily be the case.
So you would be shaving off time for what? For what parts? Because, like I said, they've been doing questing since 2017. We've seen that running through the world.
Well, I mean, I when I see that, I honestly could care less. I mean, you could get all kinds of you know, buy stuff within Unreal's store for quests and dialogue trees, and pop it in and you're set to go. You know, so when I see that, I mean, I just okay. You know, effects and even a lot of the combat. I mean, it's sort of now obviously they're tweaking all of that, and we can get into hybrid combat discussion too, which is somewhat, I guess, it's not unique. There's other MMOs that do that, but they're, you know, obviously putting their own spin on it.
Stressing it as one of the selling points to accommodate all players.
Yeah, Diggs is exactly what you said. There's one thing that sets this apart from everything else, and that is the node system. That is absolutely 100% why I spent the money I did when in Kickstarter, and when people hear about it, I'm sure that is what gets them excited. At this point, though, I assume we're not going to have any real node play for quite a while if we're having trouble even getting to an Alpha 1 state. And I know when Stephen was on with us, I think I had asked them this question, whether this boom in popularity, you know, has changed any of their thought process. and he said no, but I have to assume, imagine if it is a networking issue, but they still want to go on with alpha to get more data. Now imagine you have, hundreds of Twitch streams, some of the biggest streamers, and you can't log in, or you're rubber banding everywhere, you're crashing all the time. That's just a PR nightmare. That's just going to set you back who knows how much as far as enthusiasm and people wanting to play your game. So that to me has to play a role in here. And I bet they're shooting them. I bet if they could go back and re-decide whether or not to have a no NDA immediately upon Alpha 1, I bet if they could go back and make that decision again, they would probably reserve the right to change that and say, right away we might still have an NDA, but we'll let go of that at some point in alpha. But initially as we're testing, we might still leave that on, because I feel like they're at a point they probably can't say that now either. Probably the something that would be worse than a delay is the perception of hiding something. So.
I'm actually kind of looking here back through their post for hiring positions, seeing when the network engineer got added. And it looks like that didn't actually appear until the February 15th posting. So it could be that it took till then to actually realize, oh crap, we really need somebody who's a little bit more, in tune with the networking side of Unreal Engine. I have no idea what's going on internally with their staff. If somebody may have left the company to go to some other company, if they've had people that they thought were able to do it, but are finding, to be a little bit too difficult with their experience. No idea, but it is something to note that this is a kind of a more recent listing, it appears. So
which brings
that would make more of an argument for it being a networking issue, like we might suspect.
Which brings me back to the issue of the website having 3 or 4 revisions and thinking it's done the right way one time and finding out it's not.
This time they're pretty confident with it. That
it looks great.
Maggie was able to figure out the spec, and I think it was it Valor Software was the name of the company that actually made the website. So. It looks like they hired a professional to get it done professionally.
Yeah, and that was the other thing they talked about. So that's now live. I'm sure anybody watching this show has already browsed the website. But if you haven't, or if you happen to catch us later, just looking at stuff about Ashes of Creation, definitely go check out their website, because it's definitely as much improved. Looks very good. So
yeah, I really like the new design quite a bit.
But it's just, I wouldn't call it a pattern. We don't, 2 things doesn't necessarily make a pattern. But I don't know. I just, I wish they did not say, hey, we're going to go full on no NDA during alpha. You can stream all you want, because I do feel like that's going to end up making things more complicated and more complex.
Yeah. And it's definitely, the idea that they are not just pushing the dates back, but also pushing the NDA back with it. It makes sense that, they've got something going that they want the people who, bought in can kind of jump in and play and check out, but at the same time, and of course collect data in the process, but not reveal their hand a little bit too early while there's still a lot of stuff that they, now recognize they really do need to work out and apparently to hire somebody for. Anybody out there, if you know a Unity network specialist, by all means, send them this game's way, because Intrepid really probably needs. I don't know. I'm sure they've gotten applications for it, so that might just be redundant. But yeah, send them along.
So I don't know. We'll see. The other thought that kind of comes to mind is what does having no NDA in alpha also even get you, really? You're still probably 2 years out before officially calling your game released. So what does that actually even do for you as far as your image, your company, your, again, the PR side of things? What does that actually do for you? It gets you some initial notice. but they've also said they may not. I think he said they're starting to question whether they'll open up Alpha 1 packs. They still have not made that decision. So what does it even give you by letting people see, without any restrictions? It seems like that you have a lot of negative stuff to this and not a lot of positive necessarily. So I don't know. I wish they would just come and say, hey, we're going to move forward with Alpha, but we're going to probably have the NDA in place for a little while until we figure some things out. I would rather that happen, because obviously they need players testing the game, because every time they have done that is when they have found they actually have a big problem. I mean, that happened how often with APOC, right? That is what allows them to discover, hey, we maybe thought we were good on this, or good enough, but we're not, and we need extra help here. We need to spend more time on this part. So they obviously need lots of people in. So just a difficult balance.
Yeah. But takes however long it's going to take to get that done. Like I said, the entire rest of the team, the non-engineering side of the team, is still able to go full speed ahead, making those beautiful assets, making those beautiful, environments, shaders, effects, getting the awesome sound effects.
Spend more time making diverse racial characters than making beautiful assets like pets and mounts and
So elaborate on that. Are you saying like within each of the races available that there should be like cultural or tribal or sort of like subdivisions therein?
Well, I have been spoiled by Landmark. So Landmark tells me that by Alpha I should be able to make a character that looks like me, or close to me, or at least not white, and not just a tan white person. So I would much rather them spend time on making it so, I'm not playing a white person, than all the fantastical creatures that we see Maggie spending her time creating. Real world representation is important. And it sends a message if you're not including real world representation. So they've been making some really strange creatures, turtles with trees on their backs and all that stuff, which is kind of cool. But, I should, even while testing, I should be able to get in the game and play. I think, isn't Valheim in early access? It's not alpha.
Yeah, it's early access.
So
I want to say they've previewed some like Afro textured sort of hairstyles and patterns that Jinzi has been making. So I think there's going to be a bit more of a range than we may have actually gotten to see up to this point. I haven't seen Character Creator yet. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just saying, I'm hoping, because I don't know what's going to be available by the time we get into alpha either. I'm just saying, Landmark has spoiled me for that, so that's an expectation that I have. And I don't think I've seen that in any of the dev streams.
I think we've gotten to see maybe a few of the hairstyles and some of the stuff here and there, but you're right about more than just the hairstyle, like skin tone and like actual features and body, anthropometry and stuff.
Was it in the last one that Steven showed off the ponytail? He took his helmet off and showed off his character's luxurious ponytail. I think it was the last dev stream, and that looked pretty cool. It did look rad, so I did like the ponytail. But the female balloon, yeah, Theater Elf says yes.
So we don't have to just focus on the negative here, though. We can move on from Alpha 1.
That was a positive.
Well, my negative. I mean, you were trying to turn it into a positive.
Yeah. So what's next? What's next? You want to talk about?
I'm actually kind of enjoying what's been going on with the So Long Sanctus, the little mini quest series they've been getting the yes no votes on. It's kind of fun the way they've been depicting it now is that you finally come to a town that's been besieged by bandits and they're low on resources. So we decided to go out and beat up the bandits, and in the process, we saw a caravan and decided to protect it. And then caravan got back to the town. The moment it gets back, we see, oh, hey, that trade city that we didn't go to from like 5 or 6 steps back in the process now declared war on the little poor science node that we're hanging out in. And so the question is, defend the walls or go to town square. So I think defend the walls is the one that's the prevailing answer right now. My thought is, well, maybe they've got some cool science tech that can power up with the resources we just brought back, or at least give them time to arm up and get ready. So defend the walls. But it's really nice to see how they're trying to portray a bit of what to expect from gameplay in this process. How true it is to actual gameplay, I don't know. But all of it's kind of surrounding this, quest to figure out what the hell this random gem they found and lost and got back is all about. And Steven even talked about that during our live stream, that he was saying that it's like a special quest item. You can't just like walk up and steal items off a character, but if it's a special quest item, you might get a special interaction that allows you to yank it in combat.
Yeah, but I like that they're using concepts like an economic village in there. That definitely helps bring us more flavor of the gameplay and therefore the lore, and how that might impact our decisions. Would we choose? How many of us would choose to support the economic village, and how many of us would choose to support the scientific village? And I think I would actually like more of that detail, just so we can kind of, really get some kind of feel for who we would choose to support. Did I realize in the beginning that was a scientific village, and why might it be more important to me to change my support once I realized that was a scientific node and instead go for the economic node?
Yeah, and it says that we were able to kind of tell from like the silhouette or from like the rooftops in the distance which type of node it was approximately. So we were able to kind of make the decision based on that. Mm-hmm. But I think part of it was also the idea of, well, we've got this fancy red gem. Are we just gonna, go off and sell it, or are we gonna go somewhere that might be able to do something cool with it? Mm-hmm. So I think that's what kind of led people to the science node.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that all of that, getting little bits of flavor like that into these chapters makes it that much more compelling.
So hybrid combat, that was
hybrid combat.
Yeah,
yes.
That was the what do they call? I don't even remember.
Dev discussion number 28.
So, what are your thoughts? What do you? I think the question was what more? Which will you rather or play more? Right? Is it active versus tab based? Yeah. Action. Sorry, action versus tab based.
Because there's no way for us to know.
Right, and that's kind of my thoughts on it. Is I'll have to try it to really know. The thing that kind of bothers me is the idea that I can't toggle which version it is. That is, I can't say target that person with a fireball and then a moment later be like, all right, I'm going to lob a fireball between these 3 people equidistant so they all catch part of it. That's something that you would have to literally go back in town to respec, possibly use an augment to change it from one form to the other. So that's a little weird to me that it's going to be something where it's an either or thing on the hotbar. You don't get to use it as a tab target skill and as an open just fire at wherever sort of thing, but you have to kind of specify one or the other. I'm sure there's a lot of tactic that goes into that. I would hope that the augments, aren't just switching the modality, but also has some other effect to it. Maybe the one where you go to tab targeting for something that's normally active targeting, it gets a larger radius to compensate, something like that. No idea. That's why it's like, it's nice to kind of theory craft on the idea, but ultimately, it's going to be hard to tell until you're actually in the thick of combat for your very own self.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm mostly going to be, caster is all I ever really do, whether that's, your sort of direct damage mage, wizard class, or some sort of healer. So I don't see myself using any action-based combat. Really, as little as I can get away with is probably what I'll do. That's just, Crowfall always drove me nuts. Now, I've not, since they've moved to beta, I played around in it when it initially went, but in their very early testing phases, it just drove me nuts trying to cast spells at moving targets in an action-based system versus somebody who's more of a melee character, with a sword and shield or daggers or whatever, and you run up to someone and you hit them. When you're trying to actively target someone from a long distance, and by the time your fireball gets there, they've moved. It just drove me nuts. So,
Right.
So if I can get away with tab-based system, that's probably all I will personally use.
Yeah, I get that. Like bolts and beams, it seems like it makes more sense for them to be tab targeting because it's going to be real easy for them to miss otherwise, and might take a whole lot or have a really big cooldown. So you really don't want to miss with them. But something where you're kind of lobbing it into an area or doing something in a radius around you, I could see that being a little more like, fire at will sort of thing, and you're going to hit approximately what you need to.
I guess AoE damage or heal spells, that obviously is more action based. That's and I'm comfortable with that because that's how it's traditionally always been. But
And that's the strategy that I went with Neverwinter Online. So I think for me, when it comes to that concern with action abilities, if I'm concerned about my aim, then I do things as I'm updating my skills, or I would use, if this was World of Warcraft, I might use the term augmenting, but as I'm tweaking my skills to widen the range, make it more of an AoE instead of, so that I have a much better chance of hitting my target if I'm healing. But I liked in Neverwinter Online, I liked being a healer and having somebody run in and block my heal. That did give it more of a challenge. I liked having to watch my back. I liked having AoE effects on the ground and realizing, crap, I got to stop what I'm doing over here. Somebody's targeting me from behind, so I've got to jump out of the way. I like action combat in RPG.
now, if someone jumps in front of your heal, shouldn't you heal them? If an enemy combatant gets in your way, shouldn't the spell heal them?
I think what it ended up doing was blocking them, and I guess it depends on how your healing works and also what kind of enemy it is. If it's undead, then no, it's probably going to damage them. But it's the same thing for doing a unholy attack. You think you're doing the unholy attack on the boar, and a skeleton jumps in front, and you just, you've healed the skeleton with unholy magic.
Whoops.
But that all that makes it more challenging. So I kind of like that, depending on what the combat is like. It all depends on how it's balanced, but
because that
it's
is
a
an
different kind of challenge.
that is an idea I've never thought of. That sounds very fun to figure out how to mess things up. You know, we talk about games with friendly fire where you can accidentally hit your, you know, your party or guild members. Never considered the idea of, you know, accidental healing or beneficial spell hitting the other side. That could actually introduce some pretty interesting PvP.
Apparently, there's an entire Reddit page called "Get Down, Mr. President." That's all about players taking a shot, taking aim at something, and somebody else getting in the way of it at like the last moment, intentionally or otherwise. It's something that I'm sure we'll see a lot of. I know it's going to be a bit of a concern for me because I'm probably going to try to make the absolute shortest Nikua I can possibly make to maximize the ability to get behind stuff and get out of line of sight. So at the same time, that's going to mean anybody who isn't tab targeting is going to have a much harder time healing me because I'm just going to be this little thing below the, hopefully below the waistline of everyone else. But likewise, that's going to make action targeting a lot harder to hit me with.
That would just make some interesting, right? Just some interesting tactics if you could steal people's heals and buffs. You know, that you have somebody as a scout. You know, you're in some sort of raid PvP battle, and no, they're you know, we know there can be group spells. You know, their clerics are getting ready to cast some massive heal on their tank. Shift, get in the, you know, get in front. That would be actually kind of fun, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Roll into that AoE and then roll out.
Yeah, I mean, that would introduce such a very different experience for PvP if you could actually do that.
It's a fascinating variant of tank too. If you can tank by soaking up heals instead of soaking up damage.
Interesting.
And it would be especially fun if you were doing that as some kind of a tank rogue. Again, you roll in, jump in front of that heal, and roll back out.
No, I mean, even in sort of World of Warcraft raid mechanics, right? Which they're apparently trying to develop a raid mechanic, a true raid for alpha, but you know, where a generic boss with its minions, and you have to, you know, it spawns 4 minions, you have to kill them before they heal the boss. But you know, if you add in this extra layer of, well, just get in the middle, get in between them, that would just be really interesting.
That's one of the things I really love about the game Nine Parchments, is the ability to, when you see an enemy with the healing ray trying to heal its allies, you can just walk in front of it and club the damn thing to death. Instead of normally they'll just be like healing each other back and forth when you try to take one healer down, so you never really get through them and everything else is beating you up. So I do like the ability to do that for sure.
So, but they have mentioned, right, that they're trying to put together a true raid experience for alpha. It sounds like maybe they should put their efforts in other places right now. But I read that correctly, right? Complete with phases and all of that.
I believe so. Again, I think that's more on the content design team, though, not on the networking engineering.
I know.
So, you know, they can make the raid and, you know, get the rest of the things working at the same time. But yeah, I mean, actually, that is probably a really critical reason why they're doing it in the alpha, is to make sure that they can actually support all those players and all those things and all those effects going on in a small concentrated area without the entire little sector just going. So that makes sense. It's probably a good thing that they're doing that.
There was another part that I found very interesting. It's more on the subscription side. And again, I think you watched the entire thing. I did not, so I don't know what the context was. Where they mentioned you can actually start your you activate your subscription. I'm not sure. Does that mean you can buy
so
one?
basically, if you've pre-ordered any amount of subscription time, when day one of the game begins, it doesn't automatically kick in. If like you're off doing something, you've been, deployed somewhere as part of some organization you've joined, you're otherwise indisposed, you're out back in the sticks taking care of your parents for like a year or two, and the game launches, that you're not going to have your subscription time just poofed away because you weren't there for it. You activate it when you want. And I want to say there might be a stipulation about it being like a month by month sort of thing, that if you want to take a break or something at the end of like a 1 month cycle, you can just say, hey, put a pause on it.
That's what I was getting at, because that sounds interesting to me. A great example would be, again, World of Warcraft, where I typically will do 6 months at a time, but then I don't play. The idea or the ability to hit pause, obviously you would have to have restrictions, right? Because otherwise, I'm going to play today. Oh, I'm not going to play Friday, so I'm pausing for a day.
Right.
That starts to get to where it doesn't make sense. But
I would imagine monthly billing cycle cutoffs would be much managed.
That actually, to me, sounds like a really good idea. That you can kind of save up, I guess, to a degree, or who knows if things expire or whatever. Of course, with Ashes of Creation, I won't have to pay a subscription, but because of Kickstarter.
Other people will. Yeah.
Yeah. But that seems like an interesting business model. That seems much more favorable to the consumer than the company itself. But
yeah. I mean, for better or for worse, what they were trying to do with Chronicles of Elyria is still a little bit more what I liked. Obviously, it came with the stipulation that your character will age and die. And then once the character has died, if you want to kind of come back in and transfer their soul to the next character, you basically buy another character. It's another $40 shot. That character is also always in the world, and the more you achieve as a player, you can offset or completely get the next life for free. So, that kind of an interesting system. Definitely going for the players are your content too sort of model. But we got to see a game like that get that far first before we can see if that's really a good idea or not. I suppose the subscription model is at least something that's going to keep the wheels rolling after the game launches. I don't know what the aesthetic sales are going to look like. There's going to be the Ember shop, so there's still going to be things that people are able to buy. I don't know if they're still going to do monthly packs or not too. They probably will. I saw a few people talking about, the packs being like Star Citizen and the ships and everything in the pre-sales. Like, no, not quite, because this is all aesthetic skins. It's not actual gameplay components that you can lose and die in and not get replaced. These are things that once you've got it on your account, it is always going to be there.
Yeah, but that shop has been up and running without any problems itself for a couple of years now. So.
Yep. Speaking of, I just linked in chat there the new set, the Root of Conquest, which is, as they said, more Romanesque. And, even with the Centurion sort of look, I kind of actually like the idea of getting this, for my Nakua player, for my Nakua character, the large bunny mount kind of looks like a fun sort of thing that my character would probably ride in on. Likewise, a giant ram pet does seem like kind of a fun sort of thing. Those greaves actually kind of do look like something that, not necessarily Roman, almost looks more like a Pacific Islander sort of flair to it. So, yeah, I definitely have my eyes on that one.
I guess now that I think about it, I should go ahead and get that bunny mount. I really need a Stufferton because I'm a Care Bear. But that's kind of.
I mean, it just makes sense
in concept to some degree. But to literally have a Care Bear as a mount, I need to get that if it's available in game. But I should go ahead and get this bunny mount as the next best thing.
They just have some weird ass stuff. I'm sorry. It's just
No,
looks weird, man.
I actually really like this stuff. I also like the little structural thing, the fountain with the kind of columns in the archway. It would be a little bit striking to see something like that in a Polynesian sort of town. So I'm not sure if I would necessarily be looking to place that. At the same time, I don't know if I'm ever even going to get to the point where I'm, making any building decisions to that extent. So I'm not as concerned about that so much.
So what do they do? I'm just reading this. I need to not look at this so I don't spend money on stupid crap. But I mean, it's just there's so many weird things that I just wonder how it all is going to look together in the world. Like, is it going to be so distracting? We've talked about this with freeholds, right? If you're, one neighbor has a big ass volcano shooting fire in the sky, and your other one, is Hogwarts. I mean,
yeah, I mean that Eye of Mordor looking one definitely is going to be very ominous anywhere that it gets put down.
I mean, we it's just, and now you have all these weird mounts. I don't know. World of Warcraft's kind of gotten the same way. They've added just a lot of bizarre, because it used to be it would be like 5 colors of the same mount, right? That you would essentially. I can remember when they added the motorcycle, just how out of place that was for the rest of the world. Now it's gotten even crazier since then, but at the time,
you've got tinkerers in there, so
well, yeah. I mean, you can make it work from a lore perspective, but just from what had already existed, right, leading up through vanilla and everything else, it was just sort of weird. The helicopter stuff. I mean, it makes sense. You can get it to fit, but you talk about riding a giant rabbit or a giant teddy bear. I mean, I don't know how you get that to fit in from a
giant teddy bear is perfect. It's a wizard made it.
Yeah. I think their description of the giant rabbit is the one thing that kind of concerns me, because they say riders must hold fast their saddles lest be flung around like a sack of wheat. I actually kind of see somebody that's holding on for dear life, and they're just like kind of flapping as the wind as this thing charges along.
I don't know. We talk about immersion, and I just...
It's perfect immersion to me.
I mean, distraction breaks immersion, so...
It's a high fantasy game, so it's perfect. I'm all in.
Maybe eventually we'll get to see.
Wile E. Coyote, like giant red rocket with wheels on the bottom or something like that. That'd be maybe a little out of... Actually, no, I kind of want to see that as a caravan now. It wouldn't function like that. It'd still go very slow, but... So, I mean, that's definitely a nice sort of thing to see that they've been doing the variation. I've been kind of liking... Again, I've been a little hesitant on some of the previous sets. I might actually get in on this one.
Yeah, I kind of periodically will... Hey, that looks cool. And then I don't check it for several months. And then several months later, I get pissed because I didn't check it and something looked cool. I mean, that's life, right? So
Well,
I have to think they'll recycle a lot of these back through. I know they say they won't, but when you have a shop and you have 20,000 people potentially purchasing from that shop, compared to 5 years later, and you have a shop and you have 2 million people purchasing from that shop, there's a big difference in what money you're going to get out of that. So, I have to think that a lot of these things will eventually come back around somehow.
They said there's going to be similar, not the same, but similar sorts of things. So, like, they showed us the process of making the ice set from, I want to say 2 or 3 months ago. And they said, they showed kind of the different components, the concept and the final. So the final version is the one you can only get through that pack. But all the concept variants they made along the way, I think those are the ones we're going to see as the in-game versions. So it could very well be that there's maybe like a quilted plaid version of the stuffer tin that you can get made by a crafter instead of, the more straightforward one that they sold through the pack.
I think I should just make it my goal to look the absolute stupidest I can look as a character, just to mix up the dumbest stuff. I mean, that's
There will be plenty of people doing that. There are
a
lots
Roman
of people
soldier riding a teddy bear
who are function. I was thinking the Vec
into my mountain of fire
Yes.
with cows out front.
I'm planning on having a Vec ride that bunny rabbit mount. So
Yeah.
There you go.
What if you apply it? I mean, I don't know. We just have to see, I guess. I'm just thinking of someone with the skin of a volcano having their cattle out front that they're raising for their farm along with their corn, and this volcano
yeah,
in
you
the back.
gotta grill the meat somehow.
That is true.
I don't know.
Easy popcorn.
Well, we're getting towards the end, so
It's a popcorn farm.
no, I don't think so. I'm trying to think what else. There wasn't. So the video, the combat you mentioned seemed pretty good. They cleared up the water, right? That it's less blurry, which is good. I'm still not sold on combat, at least underwater. We'll see how that goes. It sounds like they do listen to feedback. Do I remember you? Was it Neuro? Did you mention something that they fixed? Was it a fireball or some sort of either animation or something?
Yeah, they had talked about, instead of like the big get in the air long wind up, they've kind of made it a little faster and maybe not getting raised up as much, a little less
Yeah.
grand and wacky like that.
Yeah,
So-
TL agrees it's the fireball. Yep.
So a lot of good. It's great that they're listening. I mean, that's always a good thing. So.
Grumpy guy says they stopped the silly jump lock in the air. Okay.
I mean, I'm fine with the jump lock if I'm making an AoE around me that would otherwise hurt me or something, but it doesn't sound like there's going to be like self-friendly fire in that way at all.
What was the jump lock? Was that the same? The
That was
one that-
when you would cast the fireball, you'd jump in the air and you'd be, sitting there ready to cast it where you want to, rather than just a straightforward click it, wave your hands and fire.
Okay.
I kind of want to know what cheater cards Steven has in his commander deck. I saw you mention they apparently play Magic, which I would love to sit in with them. Steven, if you ever watch, invite me out to California. I'll come play.
Wasn't that was that in the dev stream video?
Yeah.
Didn't they do some PvP and Steven of course cheated like he always does?
No, Steven didn't actually cheat, and he got destroyed every single time. The tank was actually
He kept going through and changing his stuff.
everybody set their hit points to the same fixed amount, and I don't remember what other changes he made, but he lost every round of PvP until they decided to 3v1 the tank, who, if you weren't on the team with the tank, apparently you're just going to lose.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he kept going in and changing his specs and stuff. So, and he said he did that because he doesn't get to play as often as the rest of the guys. But
Well, so the next dev stream is in 2 weeks? I think is.
Yeah, thereabouts.
Yeah. So we, next week we've talked about Valheim discussion because that's sort of popular right now. I honestly have not played it. I've actually not played hardly anything other than Magic.
yeah, and
so,
I wanted to check it out because I heard people in the forums talking about how great it is, and I wanted to see why. And I did not see why when I started, but it's actually pretty fun. So.
A lot of satisfying components to it.
Neuro, I think you should try to get some people from DLP crew to join us on.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
But yeah, I think we should try and do that next week, and then
get back with the dev discussion after that one.
yeah.
Yeah, Theater Elf. So we were actually planning to kind of return to more of a weekly sort of thing, but then a a horrible storm kind of hit a large part of the nation, and unfortunately, people were not fully available, so we had to kind of put a pause on things for a moment. But things have kind of cleared up a little bit, so I think we're going to be able to have a little bit more time to get back to our weeklies here.
Yeah, and when it comes to Ashes, the question just becomes how much information is out there for us to actually sit here and talk about for an hour, right? I mean, if y'all don't mind us just chattering on about nothing, then we can do that. But we historically have alternated, so but the game that we alternated with, of course, died. Well, didn't die. It's apparently still there. I kind of wanted to do a parody show if we can. Get back to that.
Okay.
Well, they'll have an announcement this week if everything stays on schedule, so that we could have a show about that too.
Okay.
A brand new Theory Forge Chronicles. I mean,
no. When is April Fool's?
I mean, it's April 1st. That's.
I'm saying. Okay, that's a little early for us. All right.
So, but yeah, a lot of it's been my fault as far as us not being able to do everything every week. So I do apologize for that. That's largely just with work and everything else. So hopefully things will start to get better. But yeah, part of it is just how much do we have to talk about any one game at this point, which is why we'll sometimes alternate. So, but Diggs, go ahead.
No. We can talk about it after we go offline. That's fine.
But we will be back next week, whether that's Ashes or Valheim. I got to get in and play it. I hope it's not just like a Conan Exiles, but with a Nordic flair instead. But I guess I'll have to find out myself. So, all right, everyone, thank you for joining us. We will be back in a week.
Yep. See you then, everybody. Have a good one.